I woke to the sound of metal breathing. That was the only way I could describe it, the slow, rhythmic expansion and contraction of the walls around me, as if the ship itself were alive. The air was warm and carried a faint electrical tang, sharp enough to sting my nose. When I tried to sit up, a dull ache flared through my ribs and reminded me that whatever had happened before this moment had not been gentle. I opened my eyes. The ceiling above me curved like the inside of a ribcage, lined with glowing veins of soft blue light. I was lying on a narrow platform, my wrists free but heavy bands locked around my ankles. Definitely not a hospital bed. Definitely not human tech. I was on an alien warship. Memory came back in fragments. The skirmish on the mining colony's edge, the sudden orbital bombardment, the chaos as civilians ran for cover. I remembered grabbing a fallen shock rifle, not mine, and firing until my arms went numb. I remembered refusing to retreat when the evacuation signal blared, holding the line so others could escape. And then, darkness. I tested the restraints again. They didn't tighten or shock me. They just existed, firm and patient, as if daring me to waste my strength. So, I muttered, my voice echoing oddly. Captured. The door hissed open without warning. 2 figures entered, tall and armored, their forms wrapped in layered obsidian plates etched with glowing sigils. Their helmets were elongated, faceless except for narrow slits of light. They didn't point weapons at me. They didn't rush me either. They looked respectful. That unsettled me more than open hostility would have. One of them tapped something on a wrist device. The restraints around my ankles released with a soft click. Stand, a synthesized voice commanded. I hesitated, then obeyed. My legs were shaky, but they held. You will walk, the voice continued. Do not resist. As if resistance would do anything here. They escorted me through corridors that made the chamber I'd woken in look small. The ship was vast, its halls soaring and cathedral-like, banners of living light drifting along the walls. I passed other beings, crew members of different shapes and sizes, who paused when they saw me. Every single one of them stopped and stared. Not with hatred. With curiosity. And something else. By the time we reached the inner sanctum, my heart was pounding harder than it ever had on the battlefield. The doors parted, revealing a chamber that felt less like a command deck and more like a throne room. At its center stood a raised platform of black crystal. And upon it sat the AlienQueen. She was taller than any being I'd seen so far, her posture impossibly straight, her presence pressing down on the room like gravity itself. Her armor flowed like liquid metal, seamlessly blending into ceremonial robes that shimmered between deep violet and burning gold. Her skin was pale, almost luminous, marked with faint, shifting patterns that pulsed slowly, like a second heartbeat. Her eyes locked onto mine the instant I entered. The guard stepped back. Alone. I swallowed. So this is it, I said quietly. Trial? Execution? The Queen rose from her throne. Each step she took echoed through the chamber, not loud, but absolute. When she stopped a few feet from me, I felt it, an invisible pressure, a force that made my instincts scream to kneel. I didn't. She studied me for a long moment. Then, in a voice that was neither cold nor kind but impossibly controlled, she spoke. Kale Ardent. My breath caught. That was my name. No translator lag. No mispronunciation. Perfect. You know who I am, I said slowly. I have known you since the moment you stood alone against my vanguard, she replied. Since the moment you chose defiance over survival. I was protecting civilians. Yes, she said. That is why you are standing here. Confusion churned in my chest. Then why am I restrained? Why am I on your ship? Because you are too dangerous to be ignored, she said calmly. And too valuable to be discarded. Days passed after that encounter, days measured not by time but by realization. I was not thrown into a cell. I was given quarters. Guarded, yes, but comfortable. Food was provided, adapted to human biology. Medical care followed, efficient and precise. I was a prisoner. But not the kind I understood. The Queen summoned me often. Sometimes to question me about human tactics. Sometimes to ask about Earth, its politics, its divisions, its endless internal wars. She listened without interruption, her gaze sharp and unreadable. And sometimes, she asked about me. Why did you stay when retreat was ordered? She asked during one such meeting. Because someone had to, I answered. That answer is insufficient, she said. I met her eyes. Then ask a better question. A pause. Something like amusement flickered across her features. As the days went on, I began to notice things. How officers deferred to her with absolute obedience. How entire battle plans shifted at a single gesture of her hand. This wasn't just a monarch. She was the empire. Eventually, I learned the truth. The war my people thought was a simple territorial conflict was something far larger. A fracture within the Queen's own dominion. Rebellious factions. Betrayal from within. The battle where she'd seen me fight had been a test, one of many. "You watched me," I said when she confirmed it. "I always watch," she replied. "Leaders who do not observe fall blind." "So why speak my name?" I asked. "Why not keep me as leverage? Or kill me?" She stepped closer than ever before. "Because warriors who fight without allegiance are rare," she said. "And those who fight without fear are rarer still." My chest tightened. "You're recruiting me. I am offering you purpose." The middle of the story wasn't about captivity. It was about choice. She showed me the war from her perspective, worlds destabilized by rebellion, fleets torn apart by treachery. I saw that this queen was not the villain my people believed her to be. Ruthless, yes. Calculating. But holding together an empire that would collapse into chaos without her. And slowly, dangerously, I began to understand her. One night, during a simulated starfall drifting across the viewport, she spoke softly. "You do not kneel to me," she said. "Why?" "Because if I ever do," I replied, "it'll be because I chose to. Not because I was forced." She studied me. "That answer pleases me more than obedience." The turning point came when the rebellion struck again. The warship shook as alarms blared. A coordinated strike, inside the fleet. Assassins breached the inner decks, aiming not for weapons, but for her. For the Queen. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the first weapon I could find and ran toward the chaos. I fought through corridors filled with smoke and falling debris, side by side with soldiers who no longer looked at me as a captive. When the assassins finally reached the throne chamber, they found me standing between them and her. The fight was brutal. Close. Desperate. When it ended, I was on my knees, bleeding, barely conscious. The Queen stood over me. She dismissed the guards. Knelt. Placed a hand over my chest, not in dominance, but in acknowledgement. "You have chosen," she said quietly. I looked up at her. "I was never yours to command." "No," she agreed. "You are mine because you chose to stand." When the warship returned to orbit weeks later, I was no longer escorted. I walked beside her. Not as a prisoner. Not as a subject. But as something new. When she spoke my name again, it echoed not through a throne room, but across the stars. And this time, I answered willingly.